everybody, how are you? Is it, finally, it's Friday. We're almost done with the conference. It's been intense. I don't know about you guys. Especially, I know a couple of, of things happened before the panel, but we made it on time. I'm Gabriele Zennaro from Outlier Ventures. I'm the partnership lead. Outlier Ventures is the biggest accelerator in the space. We have more than 300 portfolio companies, a couple of them in the room with us, Oki Labs. And yeah, so very interesting to talk about the DePIN space. I think it's an area where all of us are investing in. So we're going to talk about it from an investor perspective and to give some suggestions even for the people in the room. So first question, that is not really a question. I would love an introduction from all of you and a brief introduction about what you're working on.
I'll start. My name is Stepan. I'm from Cyberfund. I'm principal at Cyberfund. Cyberfund is a venture capital firm, but we also build companies and incubate companies occasionally. For example, Lido Protocol or P2P.org. But I'm focusing on investments, focusing on specifically AI, crypto AI, and pure kind of classic machine learning investments for the past couple of years. I think it's just like one of the main technological wave that is shaping the economy and the society, and I think DePIN and decentralized AI are kind of cornerstone of that happening.
Hey, this is Stan from Hashed. I'm based in Singapore. We started around 2016, 17, right before the IC era with some of the serial entrepreneurs in this space. I would say the transitional side of the space first, and then moving successfully onto the Web3 side, like doing some of the most earliest, I would say, consumer and also the gaming side of the investment, starting from the late 2018, early 2019, with some of the notable but like old names like the Sandbox, Decentralized, and X Infinity and whatnot. So we now do a lot of the investments in a more like sector agnostic manner, but still basically given the fact that we are heavily like located in the Asian part mostly, like headquartered in South Korea. We also like opened an office in Singapore last year, joining some of the founder level and also some of the work level, moving to the Singapore, working to the Singapore, and also opened up the U.S. office back then in 2019. So quite distributed, doing all the investment, but at the same time we have a like big umbrella like consisting of more than 2,000 like 500. 250 the employees under our umbrella, from the regulation and the research firm. We also did the venture studio, building some of the consumer, leading the consumer application cases, and also the quant firm and whatnot. So yeah.
It's a long introduction. There's a lot of things to say.
I'm Chad. I'm from Blue Yard Capital, GP and the CTO. We do everything from nuclear fusion to synthetic meat, and we also do crypto. We accidentally got into it in around 2015 because we wanted to upgrade the internet and make it better for humans. And we made our first DePIN investment in early 2016 in Protocol Labs and Filecoin, and we've been doing that ever since. So I focus primarily on crypto. And I like developer stuff because I'm really a developer that's just trying to figure out how to be a VC.
Hi guys, I'm Vinny. I head research at EV3 and I invest there as well. We were founded a couple of years back, and I think is one of the earliest DePIN focused funds. With this idea, before the term, I think DePIN sort of existed. We worked early on with the Helium team to sort of develop how they were going to not only launch their token, but also their network as a whole, and then launched a fund soon after. We focus on DePIN space, but now we also expand into infrastructure as a whole, as well as some of the consumer side as well. And we also run DePIN Ninja, as well as the Proof of Coverage podcast. So DePIN Ninja will give you stats on a lot of the different DePIN projects. So we run that, and hopefully some of you guys can find value in that as well.
Great. Good mix of different kind of investors on the panel. Great. I would love to know, first question, whoever wants to take it first, the latest investment you did in DePIN for one particular DePIN project, and why so?
Okay. So I guess I'll start this one. One of the founders that we are really excited about to back, and they just recently announced they had raised their Series B as well, as Daylight. And so what they do is they operate as a virtual power plant, right? And they help you mitigate the energy consumption that your house takes. So if you think about it, it's not just you have a certain amount of energy that you take, but actually the grid has a certain amount that it can give you at a time. And if you go underneath that during busy times, it's actually like you're giving energy back into the system. So this is not only really profitable for houses as well, but it also allows you to then integrate smart devices that can then modulate the energy that you take in and actually returns energy back into the system. Very exciting for us, and we think that we're excited to see how they grow.
Do you want us all to go?
One more.
Okay.
Let's go like that.
Anyone?
I think that's you. I think that's you.
Yeah, I can mention one an investment we made. It's called a company called Aiden, and they're focused on decentralized data collection for AI pre-training and fine-tuning of AI models. And they mostly focus on video data, which is which is required for creation of better model or fine-tuning of existing models for specific use cases, such as self-driving or generative video. And this is just a way of using blockchain, using decentralized network to crowdsource data, to gamify this process, and to make it to make users actually owners of part of that, especially as AI is getting more capable with these skills.
Seems like the intersection of AI and DePIN is what is interesting to you more than anything. Okay, so as a segue, the most interesting aspects of the DePIN space and from the investor perspective. So the aspects that on the space. Chad?
I'll say something here, yeah. So I think in crypto, I've said for a while, everything in crypto is DeFi, and at least half of crypto is DePIN, I think. It's kind of like, how many Haskell developers are here? Probably 0, I'm guessing. Okay, so I'm going to give you a metaphor that you won't understand, but look it up, and still won't understand. It's like blockchains are a monad, which means this compute thing, this context you can't get out of. So it's famously difficult in Haskell to write a hello world program because it can't interact with the outside world. A lot of what has been happening in crypto over the years has been inside the blockchain monad. It's just stuck in the blockchain. It's a weirdly closed kind of type of system. DePIN is the thing that allows you to get out. So internal stuff, all the MEV things, the modular ecosystem, DeFi, et cetera, that's all this internal stuff. Then the external stuff is what actually interacts with the real world. So I think DePIN is interesting because that's what you need. Crypto economic incentives driving behavior is what got us into crypto at all. Happened to be with Filecoin because we were really sold on that idea of upgrading the internet by building mechanism design into protocols. Now I'm sort of excited by what that can do in the rest of the real world and not just on computers. And even can we use crypto to program humans, for example, in the real world? We were just talking about DeHen.
We were just talking about dehumanized networks, decentralized human.
Not dehumanized.
No, not dehumanized. Decentralized.
What was the question?
Yeah. Wait, can I segue with that actually?
Please. Okay.
Because what he's saying, I think, is really important, and when you think about it one level deeper, one thing that we think a lot about is verification. So when you deal with hardware, not only do you have things that can break, and you have to worry about manufacturing them and installing them and how they're going to be deployed, but you also have a paradigm where, if you take the compute example, right? I'm actually incentivized to not do my job and somehow convince you that I did and still get paid, right? And so verification, and when teams think about it, it's a very complicated problem, and it's a really interesting design space. So I think it's an intersection of art and science. There's no perfect answer right now. But that's something we pay attention to, and I think it's unique to DePIN because, as Chad was saying, this is an intersection with the physical world. And so we need to be able to verify that the physical devices are actually doing what they said. In the daylight example, for example, you have to be able to verify that the energy meter in your home is consuming a certain amount or is giving back a certain amount, right? And so we think a lot about that, and I think that's something we look for when we talk to teams as well.
To add a bit on top of that, like I have like 2 points. Like I'm typically excited, getting more and more excited in the DePIN space. The first one is that there is a couple of different like sectors within the entire the industry, but basically, in my point of view, like there's some really like small handful of the sectors that can actually influence at the level of like 1 billion new users flowing in. So when it comes to the DePIN, like there's a lot of the different database, more like a virtualized version of the like resource networks, and like as per the coin term from like Hasib and Nagisari a couple of times before, and there's like a physical more like engaging with the real network, like what mobility and the ride-hailing type of the networkers are doing, right? So basically, for the latter one, I think. There's like 2 points. First thing is that it really engaged with the daily life for the people who are like, the normies who are like never like used a wallet since once before. So basically, there's going to be a new net influx of the users that can be potentially leveraged by those PRNs. Given that like it's really hard, and also the verification type of the problem is really big for those like physical type of the resource network in the DePIN area, but still that means at the same time there's a lot of the the mode we can think of in the more like business side. For example, if you acquire more than like 1 million users in the DePIN network. DePIN with those like ride-hailing or like any type of those more physically engaged type of the network, then basically you're more in the like traditional side of the way. You're acquiring very loyal users that does not really care about the like crypto part that much, but still want to be engaged in getting incentivized and getting also a bit of like benefit in their like daily life. So both like both parts combined, I think there's going to be more like unexpected, like fictive area that we can think of with some of those like mass adoptions coming with the DePIN side.
I'd also add one thing I mentioned about AI, and I think there's very specific reason to be excited about decentralized infrastructure for AI and it is really control, variability, and ability to error correct for these systems. Because today, like building large models, machine learning models is very capital intensive. It requires a lot of energy, it requires a lot of capital, a lot of data, and we have all these scaling laws. And that means that only a few companies in the world can do it. Like really, there's like 5-6 companies that are doing state-of-the-art models today. And a lot of the world economy, like healthcare, education, governance, business, use cases will be dependent on these models. And we need more variety in order to have flexibility to choose, in order to have control, in order to have privacy. And that can be enabled by physical, like we need a whole decentralized AI stack for that, but physical infrastructure is the more important part for that. And like the software parts, which is like model parallelism, pre-training, private inference, fine-tuning, and there's also like a compute network and maybe open source hardware for that.
Storage network, compute
storage,
network.
yeah, the whole stack.
Good. And anybody wants to add something on top of it? We covered all the aspects that we
One quick thing, Dan mentioned, appealing to users, maybe that they don't care about crypto. I think everyone needs to be thinking about that all the time and just erase any idea that we care about users that are thinking about crypto, or else no one finds product market fit, and this is all a bunch of bullshit. I agree with you on that.
I want to quickly add something to that too. Is just, I think it was Tarun who tweeted something, which was that Polymarket was the winner of the last few months of crypto by actually removing crypto from the equation. And I think I entirely agree. We should be thinking about designing user experiences that don't require you understanding a wallet or a private key. We should be designing user experiences that are just as seamless as they are in Web 2, but yet still inherit their security and other parameters from being decentralized as well.
And it's not just UX, it's actually like you need to design things that people need. And we don't need like ride hailing for crypto unless somehow it's way better because of crypto, right? We need to build things and use crypto as an implementation choice. That's true in DePIN too. In the same way, like I was a Linux nerd in the '90s, surprise, and there's this big joke about Linux next year's the year of Linux on the desktop, and it never came, and we were all ashamed. And really, it was just because all of us zealots wanted this Linux open source thing in your face, which was a stupid thing to do. But Linux is probably in this thing that's telling us we have 14 minutes left. It won. But my mom still doesn't know she's using it, and that's what we need to do with DePIN, crypto, et cetera. Sorry for the rant, kind of off topic.
And like just a bit on top of that, the decentralization, we still have to think about it, since like DePIN, the world itself is also coming from the decentralized part, and the combination of the decentralized and the physical info network. But still, basically, the decentralization part should be in my point of view, always have to be taken care of after reaching certain amount of the users that you can actually put the decentralized work with. So basically, I think that the progressive type of the decentralization is a must, definitely. And it's it provides the better option out there with a centralized one, but still we have to make sure that we bring a substantial amount of the users first to do that, the more like a vision type of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, in the whole space, crypto space, the problem is the users that need to come in general, right? The DePIN is going to help out, it's going to help, or possibly is one of the use cases, is going to help the mass adoption of crypto primitives.
Right, which like a higher level, or another way of saying that is, and a DePIN specific thing is, turns out it's really easy to build supply for almost all of these networks and almost impossible to build demand. And so you have to start thinking about demand first, and don't build anything until you think there's some chance that there's going to be demand.
What do you think the demand is going to come from?
I don't know. It's a specific, I like what I said about thinking about Linux or crypto as an implementation choice. I think demand comes from situations where you can do something that wouldn't have been possible without the power of crypto economic incentive mechanism design somehow driving something. So an idiotic version of it is Constitution DAO, which wasn't really a DAO, but amazingly almost bought a copy of the Constitution, just really quickly. That's the kind of thing where you can coordinate capital, you can coordinate behavior in a way that hasn't been possible in the past, unless you were a massive OpenAI, Microsoft, hyperscaler type of thing. And so, I think thinking about ways that you can use the decentralized world to harness this power, that's how you figure out how to create demand.
I don't get, and anybody can take that. Why do you want to remove the incentive part of it? It's intrinsic in the crypto space.
You don't want to. No. If you thought that's what I said, yeah.
I think the idea was you want to leverage that to unlock new use cases. And maybe an example of this is helpful. So Glow, for example, what they do is very simple. It's just there are certain projects in usually developing countries like India, for example. It's great for solar, right, to be able to deploy it there, but the issue is that requires some capital. And what we now have is a paradigm where blockchains take away that trust that we would need to have between two of us, right? If he and I were going to go build a solar farm, I'd have to know him, we'd have to sit down, we'd have to spend a lot of time together, but now we're allowed to coordinate amongst much larger people to actually galvanize these physical projects. And so then the way that Glows monetizes that is then they generate carbon credits from that as well, which can then be bought by individuals, and that goes back to the people that have funded and provided the capital to actually build out these solar farms. So this is, I think, an example where crypto economic incentives allow for a new use case that otherwise wouldn't be as easily facilitated.
Maybe another way to put it is that incentives is not product market fit, because you what crypto gives, it gives you larger design space to build product. And for example, in DeFi, any DeFi protocol has a larger design space, and it's easier to build something that is very, very hard or almost impossible to do as a bank or as a fintech company, because you don't have all the composability, because you have a ton of regulation, and because you just cannot harness the power of community. And again, back to AI use case, it is people would be using AI models. I don't know, they would use AI doctor, AI education software or a business tool. But if decentralized networks and mechanism design applied to incentives can allow and can create better products, which are more tailored, more private, easier to access, or have a larger amount of contributors and therefore has higher quality, then that product would win. So, and at the end of the day, it is about which product gets the product market fit. And I think a lot of products are just impossible to build unless they are sufficiently decentralized because of the that variety that you get.
Interesting. I hope nobody else has another point. We need to move for another question now. Let's go back into, or let's go to the investment side a little bit as well. So what are the risks and the rewards on investing on DePIN project? If you have any example, would be great. Dan?
Probably I'm just gonna mention a short thing around the physical side, since basically the ones that, to go back to the first question, we invested in some of the DePIN projects back then when the coin wasn't termed. I mean, the term wasn't coined as DePIN in 2020-21, but since then didn't really been active in the space. So we're now actively seeking for the potential, the investments that we can do. And one of the things during the due diligence I figure out, especially coming from the more physical side of the research network, is basically around the regulations 100%. Since, and also the founders in the DePIN space, usually coming from the physical spaces, actually they do have the track record doing similar type of the business, something like the gig economy business back in 2010 to 2015, 20 era for a decade, and pivoting into the Web3 to have all the know-hows, bring all the know-hows with the token side of the incentives. And yeah, there's a bit of a mismatch between how they can actually play out in the Web3 space with the same logic, same the go-to-market strategy they did with venture funding back then, and also back to the regulation story. There's basically there's a lot of the I would say the roadblocks coming from different set of the regulations, and that really adds a lot of the burdensome things that should be done handled from the project side, since basically DePIN itself, once going back to the term itself, is actually the power will come out, making some of the unexpected the utilization and the use cases coming from quite region agnostic manner, not really focused on the one or two different regions. So yeah, we are now talking to some of those type of the more ride hailing businesses, but yeah, I think the biggest thing, the risks that we are taking care of is those regulation, and also how they're gonna mimic the entire strategy once again. But still, the reward is, I think, quite fruitful if they really create something similar to what they did in the Web2 space. Once again, with the token dynamics, that would basically mean that they're bringing much more successful and also sustainable business that also can compete with traditional incumbents in the Web2 space. So they're going to have more of the, I would say, defensibility on the way, and also creating one of the best use cases that merges all the know-hows from Web2 and Web3 at the same time.
Yeah, I would say sort of a restatement or an agreement with you. A risk in the DePIN space is that you've got some crypto nerd that comes up with a great idea of how to use an incentive to do something in industry that they know nothing about. And so they just go off and they build some crap that no one wants. So an opposite example of that, just plucking one out of the air that I know, because I know the people, is Demo. You talk to them, they really know the automotive industry. And that, to me, is an exciting thing, because you can fill in the gaps as long as you know that you need both sides of what you're describing.
Any other point on risk? So one is regulations, the other one is demand, building something for the actual board. Some other risks that you can see on the DePIN space?
I don't know if this is particularly a risk, but so in order to incentivize people to act in accordance with any protocol, and then usually to be able to punish them, people will use stake, and they'll usually use a staking contract and a slashing contract, right? That by itself is not an adequate answer to how are you going to handle individuals who might try to mess with the system or not act in accordance, because a slashing contract by itself requires a fault that you can actually witness. And so the reason I bring this up is because it's not that founders, especially in the early stage, need to have all of the answers surrounding this at the get-go, but I have come across quite a few projects, and obviously not going to name them, but who will just list, oh, we have a slashing contract, and then when asked, well, what are you going to submit to the slashing contract, they kind of come up empty. So one thing to think about is ensuring that whatever tech you're trying to build, that you have some roadmap or game plan or thoughts on how you're going to make that attributable and verifiable on-chain, which is going to be really important if you want to use a slashing contract, for example.
Were you missing on the thing?
Maybe I'll just say to the point about tokens, like big risk for any crypto project and DePIN project specifically is when you over-index on like you launch token before you have product market fit, because it is a one-way decision, as Jeff Bezos puts it. Like you have two-way doors where you can make decision and undo it, or you can make decision and you don't have a way back. And economics and launch token is like it's as a project. Once you do it, you're forced to optimize towards token price, just like public company versus product, which is the most important thing on pre-PMF stage. Yeah.
Okay, we do have 4 minutes running on Linux over here. So the last question, I guess, for all of you is how many startup and founders we have in the room? Oh, okay. So since we are on the other side, what is the best advice you can give to them in order to approach you? Or when is the right time in order to approach you? You personally as a firm, yeah, not an investor in general.
Anytime, I think, is the right time. If you have an idea and you're excited about it, we would love to be able to chat. I think one thing, also a piece of advice on like how to maybe approach it is try to explain it pretty simply. I think we encounter a lot of people who want to throw around terminology, and there's a lot of really cool cryptography work being done. I'm not trying to minimize any of that, right? Zero knowledge proofs are incredibly fascinating, incredibly interesting. They don't need to be in everything, though, right? And so I think when asked, hey, what are you working on? What is your project? Try to keep it simple. I usually try to explain it explain it to me like I'm 5, right? And I think investors at least would really appreciate that, because it helps us understand what you're really trying to build, how you think about things, and at least from our perspective, I think that's hugely important when going forth and making an investment decision.
Yes, and focus on why people need this and why it has to be on crypto.
It's also, I personally love, I prefer demos or white papers or open source repositories rather than very like animated websites and pitch deck with a lot of design put into it. So I think the faster you put something that is working, that is a product or description of a product or a demo or open source code, the more inbound interest you will get. Because I'm like constantly monitoring, like I have this script that monitors all the trending GitHub repos before they actually got trending, and there's a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's a few projects that we found this way and eventually ended up investing. So that's also a community proof. Like if you get users, if you get contributors, that's much better proof than like trying to calculate this some metrics for the product that is not launched or very early stage. For later stage is different, but we mostly focus on early stage.
One really quick, sorry, Dan, let me cut you off. One really quick thing about the white papers, please send them. At least I think all of us here, we really like diving into how you're thinking and the technicalities behind what you're doing. The only thing I will say with white papers, please, unless you need 80 pages, don't take it, right? Like stick to concise white papers so we can actually dive in and read through it. I counter a lot that are maybe 120 pages and can do just as well with 1/10 of the space. So that's just one thing. Unless you need it, please don't use a 100-page white paper.
And to finish this question, I generally speak to the founders. I think, but this is not the case for many of the DePIN founders. But yeah, try to be avoid. I try to be concise, as mentioned, and also try to avoid the SISP, the solution in search of the problem. Just boasting the technical. I mean, how you're technical and how you're going to compete with the other, the decentralized network out there, and to be more practical and level of, going back to the DRN and the PRN once again, the digital version of the research networks, like the wireless DePINs and the things that we can do with in the virtual manner. I think in a more practical manner, you should give really clear and concise the differentiation, the defensibility compared to the other ones already out there having their own tokens. Since I feel that the entire the industry is quite diluted in that part. There's so many different diverse type of the tokens that are incentivizing the same actions. So that's going to be the one for the DRNs, and the PRNs. I think definitely are the ones that I personally care a lot about is the how you're going to tackle the Web 2. Going back to the last answer I provided. How we can tackle the Web 2 startups that already made a success in that the network, and how the sustainable the tokens that, and also how impactful you can make the growth compared to what the like Web 2 companies were doing, learning from their own growth trajectory. So yeah.
So for the audience, since we're up, you can go to Vinayak every time, anytime. We have a clear idea.
Anytime for us as well.
Come on up.
You can go. And to Stepan, only if you have a very clear and concise white paper. Don't talk to him, just send him the white paper. He's going to read for 120 pages. Thank you very much, guys. We are done. We're going to be around, so if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you to the panel.